We've said it in the introduction, this is the biggest climate investment in the country's history. That's a fact, just based on the numbers. That said, as you know, that there are scientists who say it doesn't go far enough. Robert McNally, president of the Rapidan Energy Group, an energy consulting firm, told the New York Times, it's like losing 20 pounds when you need to lose 100 pounds. So I wonder, for folks who say, okay, this is a step, but boy, the effects of climate change are coming so quickly. What's next? What can you do to solve, that shortfall?
Well, let me be clear that as I've traveled the country, I've been in the basements in Detroit where families are digging out from floods. I've spent time in California with the governor as we've looked at the impacts of wildfires. I was just in Nevada and Oregon as we looked at people who are dealing with heat islands and dealing with the impacts of that. We are laser focused on tackling this issue. The president has a number of tools in his toolbox, and the Inflation Reduction Act is another tool that gets us on that path. We can't forget that we've just passed a bipartisan infrastructure law, which has some climate remedies in that as well. The American Rescue Plan had climate remedies there. Then we have a whole of government approach where we all are leveraging existing authorities. So yes, we are on the path to meeting the president's goals.
Oh, Ben. Dude.
Good morning, sir.
That's beautiful. Where are you? Is this your yard?
This is my in-laws' backyard. I'm with family today. We're heading down to the stockyards here in a little bit. So I got to dip out at 10:45. I apologize about that.
Well, thank you for the heads up. Did you watch? Were you able to see what the clip was?
It was kind of spotty, but I know the subject for today, which is over the amazing Inflation Reduction Act.
Well, specifically the topic, as I read it, is something about, I guess, I don't know if this guy that was in the clip is associated, well, some climatologist, or I don't know who the guy was. I didn't see the very beginning of the clip. But the subject is that they're claiming there's not enough in this bill for effective climate remedies or whatever. That was the topic as I read it. That they didn't put enough money in for the existential crisis we are all facing. Right. Right.
But there is enough money to hire 80,000 new IRS agents.
Oh yeah, man. When I hear various YouTubers or even read news articles of people of people listing what's in these bills, like they're paying 20 billion for this and 30 billion for that and 100 billion for such and such, and I hear these things that are pork, right? Isn't that the term, pork?
It's basically pork spinning, where this is big government at its finest. Big government. Here, to solve these problems, let's spend more money.
So how does this happen? Are you aware of the process of lobbyists in Washington? I mean, what's that process? Somebody has their pet cause and they latch onto a representative or a senator. They say, this is the person who's going to champion my cause or something like that. And then they line their pockets, or what? How does this work?
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's actually really simple to understand. I teach my students this. Lobbyists are basically people who represent large companies, corporations, and they tell the Congress people, hey, if you support what I want, I will pay you money. That's it. That's one of the reasons why a lot of people in Congress have been in their positions for so long, is because of lobbyists.
And that's the bottom line, right? And this isn't a new thing, right? It's been going on for a century, probably since the beginning of it'd be interesting to find the history of lobbying and when the majority of politicians were paid for, like bought and paid for. Like, it seems like the majority of on both sides, right? And it's not that lobbying in itself is a bad thing, right?
Right. Now,
I mean,
lobbying in itself is not bad. It's when you go to the Capitol, to Congress, and you lobby your cause, okay? You get supporters, you lobby your cause, and you find people in Congress who will fight for your cause. That in itself isn't necessarily bad. It's when these large, very powerful corporations are telling congressmen, hey, if you don't vote for this, you won't get our money.
yeah. So it's a system that has fundamentally, a process that's supposed to work and that's essential. I mean, how do you bring to the attention of your ruling authorities important issues, and then it's up to them
Right.
to discern what, because they, like you and I, there's just not enough hours in the day to get everything done that you want to get done, right? And I think about
Right.
all the things that, if and when the Republicans take back the Congress, right, that all of these
Mhm.
issues they have to address. It's like, what's the division of labor? Are they meeting? Are they organized about this? Do they have a long list of issues to be tackled, and do they assign it to different people, or is it just people on their own kind of, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that? Is there any coordination to to be a united front in fixing what's wrong with these systems? Seems
Right.
overwhelming.
Sure. And to be fair, I honestly think a lot of these problems can be fixed with term limits in Congress. So people who get voted to represent their state or their district, whether it be the Senate or the House, those people can't be there for 40 plus years. They can only be there for a certain amount of time, and then after a certain number of years, you're gone, and someone else comes
So,
into place.
so there are term limits for certain positions, right? Like president, right? There's term limits
Right.
for president. What else? What
Right.
other positions are there term limits for?
None.
Are there
That's the
senators? Do
point.
they have term limits?
Nope. Nope.
None. Congressmen?
None. Nope.
No. All
Now,
right.
within the executive branch, the president appoints different people to serve as the heads of the Department of Energy, the Department of Education,
Right. Yep.
and those people are not elected. They're chosen by the president. And then the new president can get rid of those people. So I guess that's technically a term limit, but
So we're talking about a couple of different things here. So we know Supreme Court justices have no term. Well, they do have a term limit. Life.
yeah, death and retirement. Yeah.
Death. Right. So that's the one case on the opposite end, right? There is zero
Right.
term limits for Supreme Court justices for a reason. And then the executive branch, there's a term limit for the executive branch. But then in the middle,
Right.
you've got Congress and Senate is essentially the same as the Supreme Court, right? As long as if you have a big enough coffers to, I don't know, I don't want to besmirch anyone. I'm talking about politicians here. I guess I should besmirch every single one of them.
You absolutely should besmirch them. Yeah.
But term limiting actually is, it seems so self-evident, a solution, but the good guys don't want to do it because it means they'll be limited, right? What would it take to get term limits for senators, say? What is a Senate term is 6 years? Is that right?
Right. So a senator's term is 6 years. And if you keep getting reelected, you can stay in as long as doable. And
Senator
then a
Biden,
representative's term.
Senator Biden. How long was Biden a senator?
Oh gosh. Okay. Since the 70s, early 70s, I believe, is when he became a senator.
Political animal.
Pelosi, Schumer, McConnell, they've been in Congress for a long freaking time. And that's, in my opinion, a problem. You have people in their 80s making policies that they have no real world connection to.
So tell me, I mean, I kind of get it, but what would term limits do? Why is that the solution, and how would that affect policy and lobbying and stuff?
Well,
like
first off, term limits would tell people in the districts, for the House, it tells people in the districts that their votes actually do matter. Because when you do vote for that person in your district, that means that the person who has been in the House, they're leaving, they're gone. So you have to vote on a new person, and you have to actually look at the new person's policies and their competitors' policies. Same thing for the Senate, but for the Senate, it's the whole state, right? When you force rhinos and Democrats who've been in Congress for 40 plus years, when you force them out into their retirement homes that they belong in, it shows the American people that new, fresh ideas will always be coming into Congress. And that's how, in my opinion, it should be.
What it sounds like, right, is the populace in general falls asleep because they become jaded. It's like the politicians, the same ones, they're always there. But if there were term limits, there would be more campaigning, right? You would hear more at the bottom level. Like, can you define plenary power, right? Do you know the word plenary power? Are you familiar with that? Can you hear me?
Not necessarily, no.
All right.
Yeah.
I should look this up, but plenary power, as my understanding, is the power of the legislatures in the states, right? And basically it means it's the people, right? The people have the power. Our structure, our constitutional structure is that the First Amendment, the power is in the people's hand, right? The right to assemble, freedom of speech, religion. There's two more. That you can petition your government for justice. That's all in the First Amendment, right? Something like that. You're laughing at me,
right?
So
no, it's the freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom to peaceably assemble, and the freedom to petition Congress for a redress of grievances.
And there was a fifth one in there, but I don't remember what that one is. But that is the structure of how well we have authority, right? Those cannot be infringed, and I don't know if that word is in the First Amendment. I think it's in the Second Amendment. This shall not be infringed, but I got to go back and read it myself.
Yeah.
But you have there's this division. There's the ruling class is what we're talking about. The ruling class versus your average population. Your average population becomes jaded when the ruling class is just always the same faces and never having to make a case for running for office because they're in these safe districts. These districts don't, the districts will always vote for them because that's just the name they've always heard. It's not that they agree with the policies. They're just like, well, that's the person that's always there. Let's just vote for them. Name recognition. So term limitations would eliminate name recognition. Basically, it would reduce name recognition for politicians and force new people from the populace to stand up and run for these offices if there were term limits. So yeah, I think you're right on that. But getting something like that passed, is it in the Congress that it would have to happen? Is that where these rules would have to be changed? How do you change?
Well, yeah.
So it'd be like,
well, the way you change it, in my opinion, is what's happening. Yeah. So what's happening? The way you change it is what's happening right now. When you look at what happened to Liz Cheney, she's gone. She's done. Because the people in Wyoming are pissed off enough to get her out. So the way you change it is you piss off the American people enough, they're going to vote someone else in your place, and that's what's happening all across the nation. So that's how you change it, because people in Congress are not going to give up their power willingly.
Right. Well, I want to get back to the specific subject of the video up top here in a second, like, climate change and putting money in for climate. I do want to get back to that here in a second. I could get myself on YouTube here because, the producer gave us a topic that I know I could get in trouble with on YouTube, but I'll be careful. But before that, so there's been we're a couple months before a midterm election. And we always talk red wave, and we see the evidence of red wave in the past. And even the 2020 election was a red wave, except for the very top seat, right? There were more Republicans that came into office than Democrats. It's been a couple decades, a decade and a half at least, of this gradual, reddening of the country. But in the last couple months, we hear that Democrats are actually funding some of the MAGA candidates because they believe the MAGA candidates will be seen as too fringe come the general. Like they've been funding MAGA candidates against maybe rhino candidates in the Republican primaries, right? That there have been cases where Democrat, PACs or whatever support the MAGA candidate because they think they'll be easier to beat than the other candidate in the general election. And so there may be some truth to that. And so that may be a stifling of the red wave. And some of these, like, I hate to say it, like somebody said, a friend of mine said yesterday, well, Carrie Lake's down in Arizona against Katie Hobbs, right? Carrie Lake is polling like 1% below Katie Hobbs when she was 18 points ahead of her rhino in the primary, her rhino competition. So it's like Herschel Walker's down 10 points. I mean, that's ridiculous. 10 points in Georgia against a guy who's, well, I won't go into the problems with some of these Democrat candidates, but
yeah,
I'm getting a little nervous. I hate to admit that openly because, people are like, well, you're the champion. You're the hopium for like, what's going to happen in November? I mean, what do you think is going to happen in November?
Well, what I think is going to happen in November is there will be a red tsunami in Congress. But if there is not, the states will still have their power to regain their sovereignty and do things the way they want to do them. So at the end of the day, no matter what happens in Congress, the demented potato will still be president and the states will still have their sovereignty. And so that's why I've always been pushing local elections, local governance, because that's what's really going to matter at the end of the day. Now, I apologize. I do need to dip out. I apologize. I got to head out. I'm taking the family down to the stockyards. So again, thank you so much for having me on the show. I really do appreciate it.
Well, I guess I'll see you next week, Ben.
Yeah, I'll see you next week. Love you guys. Never surrender, never submit. See you later, guys.
All right. It's either just me or somebody else is going to be in here. All right. It's just me. That's fine. So I want to get back to that topic, as I said, but it's going to get me in a little bit of trouble, and I'll try not to cross any lines. But before that, I want to give a thank you to Matt, producer Matt. Matt has been producing this show from the beginning. I don't even know how long we've been doing the chat session, but Matt has been producing a lot of shows on our network. Producer Matt is an amazing tour de force. He's a guy that just has instincts. Like I'm a visionary. I spout things. I say, oh, let's do this, let's do that. And it's impossible for people to do everything that I come up with and envision and imagine. But Matt took it by the reins at the beginning and has produced a whole bunch of content for This Way Network. And he's having to step back. It's not there's some people that just have to leave and can't help at all. And Matt assures us he's connected to us forever. But we have, Tom, are you coming in? You're muted.
There we go. Nope, there we go. I'm there.
Oh, so you're like, all right. So I wanted to say,
finish where Matt is going. Yeah,
I want to bid not a farewell, but a kind of a changing of the guard. Matt has to, like, we're in financial dire straits, some of us, like in these times, and Matt has made incredible sacrifices just to do what he's been doing to make all of this possible. There's so much, I have no idea how much he does, and so we're going to be suffering without Matt. But we are. Tom is here picking up some slack on the chat session, and I appreciate that, Tom. And so welcome to producer Tom. You've been in training, and are you like flying solo here today? You are a producer. You're running the show right now, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
That's what a producer does.
This time around, much easier. Except there's always a little glitch. I remember Matt was saying, make sure Michael comes in first, and of course Michael doesn't even show up till the last minute, but that's a little nuances there.
Right, because I jump literally from the other show to this show, and it's like I literally have to sign off. I have to look at the clock, and if I'm not looking in the right place at the right time, I'm like, sometimes I go over. So good job. Good job, because it'll be like that, because this show always comes right after Bible every morning. So I will always be a few seconds late. Not always, but usually. Maybe I should jump out of that show early. Maybe that'll make it easier. Anyway.
No, it worked out fine.
So before I just called you a producer, what was your impression of the word producer? What did you think a producer was?
Producer, obviously you need somebody there to run everything like it's kind of like a referee, to turn things on and turn things off. And then as obviously a backup, if there's a no-show, which can happen, and somebody has to leave early or something like that, and it could possibly be the producer is there producing on the show itself. So it's a tough job. It's a little bit stressful.
The word producer, so there was a time when I didn't work in Hollywood, right? And so I was on the other side of this threshold, this veneer of whatever Hollywood is. And the word producer, one of the things it elicits is somebody with power and influence, right? Somebody who knows what they're doing, somebody who's calling the shots, right? It's the
I always think of the movie, the producers. I always think of that.
Well, right, that'll little color you, right? Well, that's probably more like it. It's a clown show, really. Well, as I'm a producer, like I'm an award-winning producer, like there's a trophy that has my name on it with the word producer next to it. And it's like, oh yeah, I guess I am a producer, even though my job description specifically is editor, but editor is also has a kind of a continuum. You can just be an editor and sit and push buttons at doing what you're told. Somebody's telling you everything. You push the buttons and you make the picture move and you make the sound go up and down and blah, 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 an editor. But then there are positions like my position where they throw stuff at me and I'm responsible for all of it. I don't have somebody telling me every little thing. I'll have people give me notes, but I am producing. And so there's this continuum of producer. There are producers in Hollywood that don't know the first thing about making a movie or a TV show. There are people that are credited as producers because they knew somebody or they were a friend of an actor that, like, I'm connected to this production over here and they need an actor, and I'm connected to this actor over here and I'm going to connect this actor with this production, and I, as a result, get the title producer. And that's all they do, right? They get it. So producer is this vague term, but producers also are the ones that do the most work. Best producers are the ones working the hardest. So Tom,
now, does the director report to the producer? Is that how that works in Hollywood?
To be fair, there are different levels. There's associate producer, there's line producer, there's executive producer, right? So there's all these modifiers to the word. And so, yes, the director has to report to the executive producer and the supervising producer. And sometimes the director, and all of those relationships are contingent upon the clout or the status of the person themselves. So if you have an A-list executive producer, like a big boss who's been successful, everybody's going to listen to him and follow him. But if you've hired like an A-list director who's the biggest name on the set, then the producers are going to kind of cave to him, right? He's brought there for a reason. Or if there's an actor who's an A-list actor who's super successful, he will have say over the director and the producer. So it's all contingent. Yeah. So
the Hollywood moguls run everything, right? The moguls run everything, and they will hire their producers and what they want to get done. Especially in your situation with that documentary film you're doing. It's hard to imagine that business aspect of Hollywood. It's hard to fathom that.
Well, you are a producer now, Tom. You're producer Tom, producing the chat session. And thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to help us out here. I do want to get back.
My pleasure.
I do want to get back to what the topic was, because I promised people I would at the top. So
inflation.
So there's not enough money in this bill for climate change policy or whatever. That's the contention. How much money is enough money? Like, how can you, the goal is what? To bring down the global temperature? Is that the goal? Like, there's no way anybody can figure out how to bring down the global temperature. Like, there's not enough money in this bill to plug volcanoes that spit CO2 into the atmosphere. There's not enough money in this bill to plug the pardon my French, but the butthole of every cow that passes gas, right? There's not enough money. The things that purportedly cause the environment to heat up. So what are we going to do? All right. We're going to install a whole bunch of electric charging systems across the map that take the CO2 emissions that it will take to construct all of the electric charging stations, and then the coal and oil that will have to be burned to power the electric charging stations. So you in your electric car can think you're doing something good. How much money?
They don't want to go there. Yeah. Yeah. And that bill was scaled back from its original intention big time. I remember Biden had to kind of go back and negotiate with Schumer to get Matt's favorite senator on board, Manchin, to pass that bill. So they didn't really, they say they got what they want, but I don't think they really got what they want. So
they never have what they want. You know why? Because all they want is a 4-letter word. Begins with the letter M. M-O-R-E. There's not enough in it because they just want more. That's all they want is more, because that money doesn't go to anything.
Open spigot. Yeah. Let me put this on there. I don't know if that'll probably get.
Oh, here's Mom. Yeah, put that back. Leave it. No, leave it up. Leave it up. I want to read it. Yeah. Climate change is a farce, made up excuse to empower them. Whatever. Yeah, well, it is a power grab. It's totally a power grab. It's fear mongering. You can take that down now. It's you have to have some kind of existential fear to control the population, and that's what this is. And it's a I don't, like I said, I don't gosh, have we already gotten ourselves in trouble on YouTube by saying this? I don't know. It's weird to have to couch our terms, but I don't think we're in trouble, right? I think we can talk, but
I think we can talk about
it. We only have less than 2 minutes left. Tom, are you producing just Friday's chat session? Or are you going to be doing?
No, I'll talk with Gina on what the availability is.
Okay.
For me.
Excellent.
That. Yeah. No
so
problem.
there was a question. I think it was Mom asked, "Who's over the producer?" And that was, here's the question: Who's over Tom? Gina.
That's right. Yeah, she's the mogul.
It's an infinite regress, right? There's a producer over the producer. Well, who's over that producer? Another producer. There's another producer, right? The echelons of producers. But to answer Mom's question, who's over the producer? If you put capital P as the top producer, it's God. Right? That's
God is in control.
It's not an infinite regress. There is someone in ultimate control, which executive producer, yes, is the top producer. And if you watch a movie, you'll see above the line and below the line. And what that means, the words above the line and below the line, it means the title, right? When the title comes on of the movie, whoever's name came before the title is above the line, and whoever's name comes up after the title is below the line. There's a little hint for you. And so executive producers and A-list actors, those are all above the line. And below the line are all the hired grunts like me, all the cogs in the wheel. That love this business and love to get paid doing something fun. But I'm here and just want everybody to know I work in Hollywood I have big plans. And, you hinted at part of my project, but good things are coming, and I'm going to do everything I can, and God is in control. There, we're done. Thanks, Tom.
Good ending. Good ending.
And